What's going on, everyone? So, Jimmy Butler has been heavily linked in various trades. Obviously, he's a big name, big prize. Guy's done more with less than probably any star in the league, right? He's a guy that could really be a big needle mover, game changer for some of these teams that are, close to contention or believe that they are in contention. Now, obviously, there have been several teams linked to a potential Jimmy Butler trade. Two teams that kind of seem to be, I guess, the front runners are the Golden State Warriors, which I think is the most likely team where I think if I had to guess where he ends up, probably the Warriors. But another team is the Phoenix Suns. I've talked about, hey, what about like a Bradley Beal for a Jimmy Butler kind of swap? You need a third team because there's like a $2 million difference. But could you get that done? Work something out in that regard. Think it kind of makes sense for both sides, right? If you're Miami, you still get to be competitive. Bradley Beal probably goes back to being a 35-5 guy alongside Bam Adebayo, kind of put the pieces around. But it'll be interesting to see where Jimmy Butler lands and ends up. However, Clutch Points recently released a bunch of news and information, and one of the teams that are linked to a potential Jimmy Butler trade is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I don't like that, if I'm being honest. I think if you're the Thunder, I understand the idea. I understand the thinking and thought process, right? If you're the Thunder, you're like, man, we are right there, right? Jimmy Butler, SGA, Chet Holmgren, right? Like, who's beating us type thing. I get that. I understand the thought process with it. Don't do it. Please. I really, really hope that the Thunder do not make that mistake, do not make that decision. We have seen several young teams make the mistake of, let's kind of try to expedite this thing. Let's try to get ahead of the curve here. And it ends up ruining everything that they've built. The Thunder are there. They're right there. They could win a championship this season. Stay the course. I'm not saying you don't get another star. If that right move, that right piece, that right trade, I understand the Thunder are going to have cap space. They have insane amount of assets, right? Like, I understand that at some point you're going to need to start making moves. You're going to have to start making tough decisions here. You're going to have to start doing stuff. I get that. Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, is not that decision, is not that move. That's not the thing that you make. I understand, and I get, with Alex Caruso and all the, I understand the allure. I understand the thoughts of like, oh man, like, what does this look like? Again, like I mentioned earlier, Jimmy Butler has done more with less, probably any star in the league, right? So the idea of like, oh man, if we added Jimmy Butler with SJ, that might be the thing that puts us over the top. And it might be, right? Like, I don't want to sound like, there's no, like, if they do that, they're cooked, they're done. It's just, again, you're on the proper path, right? Like, they're a team more than anybody right now that feels like they are any moment away from hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy and winning their first NBA championship, right? And yes, you might be able to kind of take a shortcut to get around and end up to the same spot, but that shortcut can end up getting you lost. And now you're spending more time than you needed to now get to that same point. Or maybe you never get back to that same point. Maybe you're never able to find that path again, right? At least in this timeline with SGA and things like that. And that's my concern. If Jimmy Butler was 32, right? Something like that. Jimmy Butler's already dealing with injury issues, right? He's only getting older. Your window is incredibly tight, incredibly limited, right? Like, you have this, like, 2, maybe 3 years with Jimmy Butler window before, and he wants max money. Like, I think if you're the Thunder, you're a team that needs to stay away, right? Like, I could see it for some of these, like, I said the same thing about Houston, right? Like, I think Houston has been a team that's linked to Jimmy Butler. Houston needs to stay as far away from that too, because again, they're the other team that is just like, you're right there. Again, if OKC, like, if Giannis becomes available and OKC wants to make that push, you do it. Right? Like, there's some, like Devin Booker, right? Whatever, something. Right? If there's a guy, like the right star that you're like, man, like, and the age and all that stuff kind of fits, it makes sense, right? Then sure, you do it. But to go and go get a guy, Jimmy Butler, who's 35, right? Like, even if he plays 5 years, like, what level is he going to be able to play for those 5 years? All right, like, to what level are you going to be able to get for Jimmy Butler? And now you're paying him $40+ million a year. And like if he was willing to take, which, we don't know how much he's willing to take on his new contract, but I don't see him being like, all right, I'll take $20 million a year. Like, give me 4 years, $80 million. I don't see that being the case. So then you're going to go trade for him. And then if it doesn't work, you either have to overpay him or you have to, and now you're stuck with him, or you have to let him walk. And you had the cap space. You had the flexibility anyway. You had all the things anyway that made sense. Right? Like, I could see some of these other teams, like I've talked about the Spurs. Spurs are a team that's also listed on it. I don't want the Spurs to do it either. I think the Spurs should stay away from Jimmy Butler also. Again, team that, the Spurs to me seem like the Houston Rockets and Oklahoma City Thunder like 2 seasons ago, right? Where they're like 2 seasons away and then they'll be in that upper echelons and in those conversations. However, Wemby is so good, so fast, so great. And he's like dirt cheap. Even next year, he makes like $13 million and then $16 million. So I've made the argument of like, while Wemby is cheap, you can kind of gamble a little more. You can kind of take the risks. He's so young and so cheap, right? Chris Paul, things like I think, again, I don't like the idea of Jimmy Butler to the Spurs, but I don't think it's the worst. Like, if it happened, I think that actually wouldn't be bad for them. Because, again, they have the contract, they're cheap, like, and they're like in the hunt for like a playoff play-in, and it's like if they get a guy like Jimmy, now maybe they could be or I do believe they'll be, outside of like injuries, be a legit playoff team, right? And then you get in the playoffs, and it's like Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, right? Harrison Barnes won a championship, been there, done that, hit big shots, right? Victor Wembanyama, Jimmy Butler. Again, Jimmy's done more with less, right? Jimmy's a guy that's unselfish, right? And that's one of the things that I like about Jimmy Butler. He's one of those guys that, like, even on the Thunder, wouldn't take away from SGA and these others. He doesn't care, right? Whether he's giving you 5 or 50, he doesn't care, right? He just wants to win. So if he needs to do the dirty work and just go get 15, fine. He'll do the dirty work and go get 15. Hey, you need me to go get 30 tonight? Give me the ball. Give me the rock. I'll go handle business. I'll go get us this 30, right? Like, and I love that about Jimmy. I love the toughness, the attitude, the competitive nature, the competitive drive. I just think Houston and OKC, they're already there, right? They're right there. They don't need to rock the boat. A team like the Spurs, they are getting there, but I think that they're still in a position where they could rock the boat a little bit and still be fine, right? Like if Jimmy, for example, if the Thunder or the Rockets go and trade for Jimmy and they end up having to let him walk because it doesn't work, now what do those teams do, right? But a team like the Spurs, even if they had to let him walk, it's fine. Because you're not selling the farm to go get Jimmy Butler anyway, right? Like, and you're still good. Like, you're always going to have Wemby, and you're still 2-3 years away from being a contender anyway. So if Jimmy doesn't work, you're still 2-3 years away from building a contender anyway, right? Like, as long as you have, like, your main core pieces, you're fine, right? But the Thunder, on the other hand, I just think that they're already there, right? And even if they lose this season, let's say they even lose in the first round, you're still there. You're just gaining that experience. We witnessed this the last go around with the Thunder, with James Harden and Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. They had it. They were right there, and then they decided to just, we didn't need this. We didn't need to do this. Like, it's just, I don't want to see them do the opposite this time, where it's like, okay, they got rid of the guy that they should have kept, and then now they end up trading for the guy that they shouldn't get, right? Like, it's just, to me, I mean, you can make the argument that they should have taken, and I know Russell Westbrook was Mr. OKC, but in hindsight, looking back, they should have kept James Harden. Because if they would have had James Harden and Kevin Durant, they probably would have won, right? Like, Westbrook and KD just didn't mesh well. But James Harden, if he would have gotten like Houston James Harden, if he would have had like Houston James Harden with Kevin Durant, that would have been tough, right? It would have been really tough. I mean, they almost beat with that James Harden and Chris Paul almost beat the Warriors with Kevin Durant. So, I mean, like, they were right there, right in the thick of it. So, again, I don't think it's like impossible, but it's one of those things where I think that the Thunder, they need to stay the course, stay patient, let things develop, let things kind of work itself out. Don't get too ahead of yourself and you'll be fine. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Think, no, they need to go make a push for a Jimmy Butler? Do you think absolutely not? Stay as far away from Jimmy Butler as possible. However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.